and welcome to the Culture Cast. I'm Chris Stashu, and I'm joined by my good friend, the one and only Mr. Mike White.
Cropsey's going to get you.
The host of the Projection Booth, everyone's favorite podcaster, Mr. Mike White.
Everyone's.
Mine? You're mine.
Aww.
I know who I am not the favorite of, and that would be Mike Doherty. I may have made some comments about Godzilla King of the Monsters on Twitter that drew the ire of the director. And to that I say, your movie is unsubtle, and it does paint Godzilla as a Jesus lizard. So come on, man, take criticism in stride. Just laugh it off. Don't throw me in a rude bin with the other internet trolls. But in regards to Cropsey, he is going to get me. And he got you, Mike.
He sure did.
So, it's Jess Byard June. She decided that let's talk about summer camp horror movies. And no better summer camp horror movie to talk about than The Burning, a film that, for all intents and purposes, wasn't seen in its full form until 2017 when it was released in its uncut version. So let's talk a little bit about The Burning.
This summer, if you're planning to go camping, don't. If you're looking forward to midnight swims, don't.
Sneak on back to the campsite. Get some matches. Build us a hot fire. Don't be long.
And if you're thinking about being with someone where no one can see you, don't. Because this summer, a legend of terror isn't just a campfire story anymore.
They say he smashed his way through the bunkroom door, just a mass of flames. Burned alive, cried out, I will return! I will have my revenge! He lives on whatever he can catch. Right now, he's out there, watching, waiting. Who's there?
What happened one summer 5 years ago is about to happen again, and again, and again. The Burning.
Film is directed by Tony Maylam. I really don't want to say who wrote it. I don't. I really don't, Mike.
You gotta do it.
I know. This film has the stink of the Weinsteins on it. Specifically
all
Harvey.
over the place.
All over the place. I want to say it's in the opening credits. It's created by Harvey Weinstein. Great, thank you. Moving on. And also I believe there is some controversy regarding this film, even as far back as 1981, with Harvey Weinstein pulling his quid pro quo shit then as well. Something about his behavior. One of the production assistants was essentially harassed by him. So, shocking? Question mark? Yeah, if you're surprised by that, you shouldn't be. The film stars a lot of folks whose names you are going to recognize. Jason Alexander, yes, Costanza from Seinfeld. Holly Hunter in a pretty, blink and you miss it scene. And Fisher Stevens.
Completely unrecognizable to me other than his voice.
Wait, Fisher Stevens is?
Yeah.
Really?
I mean, once I heard his voice, then I was like, oh shit, that's Fisher Stevens.
I'll tell you what I know him from. He is
Short Circuit?
Nah, he's Iggy in the Super Mario Brothers movie.
Oh, okay. Which I still haven't seen.
Well, maybe one of these days I'll make you watch it. I'll ask you to be like, we'll be doing this on the podcast, and you can't say no. No, I would never do that to you. But I don't know. The other kind of actor in this movie that I recognize, but I'm a huge fan of the movie, is Brian Backer from Fast Times at Ridgemont High.
Yeah. Who's got such a great look to him.
Yeah, I mean, he's great. And, Fast Times at Ridgemont High was kind of, other than Police Academy 4, kind of his, big break. He plays Rat in Fast Times at Ridgemont High, I would say ostensibly one of the main characters of the movie. And he's great in that film. And he's pretty good in this movie. The kind of character that he's saddled with isn't great.
Is he supposed to be a red herring?
I guess so. So the plot of the movie is a former summer camp caretaker gets burned alive, and then he comes back. Who is a
dead ringer for Chris Kattan to me.
Yeah, right? And he gets burned alive, but he's still alive, but he's just burned beyond recognition, and due to a prank by some camp goers, and then
some ne'er-do-wells.
Yeah, some ne'er-do-wells. And then 5 years later, he comes back after being in the hospital for 5 years. He comes back and goes on a rampage at the same summer camp, and he wants to just kill as many summer camp kids as possible, so you think, until the end of the film, where there's a little bit of a twist. Not really a twist, but a little bit of kind of a reveal, as it were. So, Mike, I'm assuming this is the first time you'd seen this film. What did you think of Jess's first choice for Jess Byard June, The Burning?
Well, I don't want to correct you, but actually the initial burning takes place at Camp Blackfoot, and later on he goes to Camp Stonewater. So There are two different camps in this movie.
Sure. I mean, does it really matter, though?
No,
I guess
it doesn't.
Right. Like, with the reveal, it doesn't really matter, right?
No, even though I guess Todd goes to both camps. I guess he swings either way. Either Blackwater or Stone, whatever.
Right.
Yeah, this was a first-time watch for me. I had heard about this movie for a long time because, for whatever reason, even though I still haven't seen any other than Freddy vs. Jason and Jason X, I haven't seen any of the Friday the 13th movies, but I've seen documentaries about slasher films, and this one usually gets lauded in slasher movies. What a great movie this was. It feels like there are things that are missing from it, even though you were saying we watched like the full version. It feels like there were little deaths when it came to how this movie got put together, and I could be completely off base because it just doesn't feel like it's an artistic whole. Like, I was reminded a lot of like a Giallo film with the way that Cropsey wears his black gloves. And we've got that great score from Rick Wakeman, which reminds me a lot of the score that, who was it? Keith Emerson did in Inferno. So I'm just like, okay, this is pretty cool. And then we've even got like a moment, like when he picks up the prostitute after he gets out of the hospital. I was like, oh, this is very Michael Powell. This is very Peeping Tom. But then there are other moments where I'm just like, okay, yeah, this doesn't really fit together. It's like, it feels like half the movie's very artistic and the other half is just kind of schlocky.
Yeah, that's the strange thing about this movie is the kind of delineation between, I wouldn't even say the first and second half of the movie, because it's essentially the first 20 minutes of the movie and then the rest of the movie. Because the first 20 minutes is like really stylish and interesting, and then there's like bits of it, like you said, throughout, but it is just a slasher movie with a lot of really recognizable folks in it. I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I'm just saying that the idea is not particularly unique, so much so that a film that we still may talk about, probably not though, but a film that ended up getting kind of thrown around and not released as quickly or in the form that it was going to be released initially, Madman, that film almost was like a ripoff of this one because the idea is so ununique. Slasher is at a summer camp and he wants to come and kill all the teenagers. I mean, like you said, Friday the 13th, pretty much, that's the whole gist of the first couple ones.
Right.
I, like you, have not seen any of the Friday the 13th films either. If you are surprised by that, I am too. The only one I have seen is Freddy vs. Jason as well. So, the thing about this movie that I was not disappointed by, but kind of surprised by was it like you said, it feels like things are missing, and the conclusion of the film is so lackluster. It is shockingly disappointing in a way I was not expecting, and the reveal feels like it came from a different movie.
Yeah, and like I said, I mean...
Or it was just tacked on at the end, because they're like, we need to have some way that this all ties together.
Yeah, I kept thinking that our loser character was going to be the killer because he keeps getting picked on. But then as I'm watching it, I'm like, there's no way he can be because he's seeing these murders. He's, someplace else when the murders are taking place. But I was like, is that going to stop it from trying to tell me that he's the murderer? So I don't know. I was almost too distracted by him like being this weird voyeur character.
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense because, like you said, if that's what they were going for, then don't have a killer like Cropsey in the background.
Right.
Because you can't red herring in a movie where you show us the villain being burned at the beginning of the movie. Like, that's not how this works.
Yeah.
It's just, realistically, you can do it where you don't know the villain and you haven't followed them from before when they get to the camp, but you can't do it in this film. You just can't.
Yeah, because it is weird to include that pre-credit sequence and then have that same exact shot of the hospital with the 5 years later and then that initial murder of the prostitute. And I'm just like, okay, all right, yeah. So like you said, we know who this guy is. There's no way that he's a different person. And then that they tell the story at the campfire later on. I was like, okay, had they cut out the beginning of this movie and started it at the camp, 5 years later, I think the reveal of the campfire story would have made it more interesting and would have said, like, are they bringing are they kind of conjuring up this character by discussing it at the campfire?
Well, that's what Madman is. Madman is literally that idea of they bring him up, the story ends up conjuring the villain. That's what Madman is.
Right. I mean, even if, like, we had seen people being murdered beforehand, then it would have been like, ooh, is he really a story or does he exist? Or, yeah, I think that would have added more of a supernatural element to it rather than what they ended up with, where it was very, very apparent, like, this is a real thing, this is happening.
Yeah, and the lack of, not mystery, but the lack of anonymity with the character is a little disappointing, because a lot of these films are predicated on you don't know who the killer is.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's this big reveal at the end, and oh shit, it's Mrs. Voorhees. And it's just Cropsey. Okay.
Hey, it's just me. Hey, how you doing? I'm Cropsey.
So, by the way, the Cropsey urban legend was covered in a film called Cropsey. I don't know if you've seen it or not.
Where they don't even mention the burning?
Well, hey, man. That was their choice. That was their choice. They don't mention the burning at all. I don't think they needed to.
No, but you would think, like, this story is so popular, they even based a movie on it.
Right, and they literally call the character Cropsey in this movie. It's spelled differently than the way it's spelled in that movie. I want to say there's no S or there's no E in this movie. And in Cropsey, the film by Joshua Zeman, and Barbara Brancaccio, I think is her name. That's Cropsey, S-E-Y. But that's the whole thing that talks about, the Cropsey character and how he haunted the children of upstate New York. But yeah, it's kind of weird because this movie was made in 1981.
Right.
Another positive for this movie is that it does have work done by Tom Savini.
Yeah, I mean, the effects are nice.
Yeah, the effects are great.
When the scissors go into that prostitute's side at the beginning, I was just like, oh, that's a really nice effect. And yeah, some of the murders are done very well. What's up with our main character? I mean, so we've got the nerd character, and then we've got
Brian Backer's character.
Right, Alfred. And then we've got Brian Matthews as Todd. And Todd it's like anything takes this guy down. Like, he gets glancing blow from Cropsey and he's down, and then, he's pretending to be out. And then later on, he, falls off when the mining cart, the very convenient mining cart, almost, crashes into him, and he gets knocked out again for a few seconds. It's just like, dude, I'm like expecting somebody has to sit there with like, AB, trying to get him to have power back and get him back up off of, to his feet.
Yeah. Well, and another negative with the film is the character of Todd is completely one-dimensional.
Yeah.
I actually like a lot of the characters in this movie, which, again, that should be a testament to the quality of this movie if I actually care about the summer camp goers, because a lot of these summer camp movies, they don't give you a reason to care.
Right.
That's not something, and that's just horror movies in general, especially slasher films. They don't give you any reasoning to care about the characters that are, possibly just going to be ground up and spit out by the killer. And in this film, I cared about them because they're actually given a fair amount of characterization. However, Brian Matthews as Todd is one of the weaker characters in the movie.
Right. Yeah, I think, Jason Alexander brings it as Dave, Larry Joshua as Glazer, the real dickhead of the group. I mean, I knew him enough to hate his guts, and I really appreciated that.
Hey, you want to go for a swim with me? No, you fucking creep. No. 1,000 times no.
Yep. Yeah, and who was that guy? Eddie, the guy that gets accused of murdering the girl as well. She takes off, or she allegedly takes off, but she was actually killed by Cropsey. I liked him. I appreciated these characters. Yep, appreciated Fisher Stevens as Woodstock.
I'll tell you what, though, and let's talk about a scene specifically. The scene where you've got, essentially, these are the campers that are sent back to try, on a makeshift raft, to try to get back to camp to let everyone know, hey, by the way, we've lost our boats and we need someone to come get us so we can get back to camp. It's like Woodstock, Eddie, a couple other characters. I think Fish is one of them. That, like, they're not really, I mean, Woodstock is kind of the only one, along with Eddie, who's really given any characterization out of that group. Some of the other ones just kind of have, like, pithy one-liners. And then they're all just fucking murdered.
Yeah, oh yeah, that's pretty cold-blooded.
Yeah, like, literally Cropsey is just hiding in a raft or a canoe, and he just pops up and murders all of them. And it's a great scene because it is kind of so unexpected, and really it's a savage killing, but at the same time, you just lost like half the characters you care about.
Right.
And that's a bummer.
It is, but at least we have stakes in this movie. At least it's not like they're all, just dead meats.
Right, which is, again, a huge complaint I have with a lot of these slasher movies. And I am a huge fan of horror. I mean, horror is my favorite genre, but even as a fan of the genre, you need to be kind of aware of the things that the genre tends to try to get away with, which is not giving us characters to care about. And in this film, like you said, Jason Alexander is great. A lot of the characters are great. But
it's so weird to see Jason Alexander with hair,
right? And not like a wig hair, like hair.
Right.
Hair.
Yeah, this isn't Pretty Woman hair. This is real hair, even though it's like that hair just looks like it's kind of hanging on for dear life.
Well, and here's the thing. So this film came out in 1981. Jason Alexander did not act again until 1986.
Wow.
Yeah. So this is his first role, and he's great. He is absolutely one of the standouts of the film, without a doubt. I would say him
wanted to spend some time in the theater.
Yeah, I would say him and Fisher Stevens are the big standouts of the movie.
Oh, yeah, completely.
But again, it just comes back to when I think about slasher movies, especially ones set at summer camps, that of which there are a fair amount, and we're going to be talking about them this month, primarily, a lot of it lives and dies by the final girl and the villain. And I did not really find the villain in this film to be that interesting.
And there is no final girl, really.
Well, I mean,
You think Alfred's the final girl?
I'm not going to say he's not.
I mean, yeah, he kind of plays that part.
Yeah, he plays that part. And he plays the damsel in distress, but...
He does.
Yeah, he plays the hero in distress, which is not a hero. I mean, a female character hero as well, but I guess... I don't know what you would classify it as. Man in distress?
Yeah. I mean, it's
in distress?
practically tied to the railroad tracks.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, pinned in the mine by his arms. Mm-hmm. I don't know. I just wasn't impressed by Cropsey as a villain. And his, because every slasher has kind of their tool of choice. Freddy has the glove, Jason has the machete, Michael has the kitchen knife, and his are garden shears?
Well, the garden shears once he figures that out, because before that he wants to use whatever, scissors.
Well, aren't scissors... Wait, hold on. Aren't scissors just smaller garden shears?
They're very small garden shears, yes.
Okay, so...
I mean, in a pinch, you can use some scissors.
But effectively he uses scissors, or larger scissors, as his killing tool in this movie.
Yeah. Scissors or larger scissors.
Right. Which, I mean, again, look, that doesn't leave room for a lot of creativity with the kills.
Right.
There are some cool kills, like when he kills the kids on the boat, he slashes, one of their heads open, one of the female characters, he slashes their head open. He cuts Fisher Stevens' fingers off, which you knew had to happen at some point, especially when you've got a, scissor-like item. But I don't know. I mean, how did you feel about Cropsey as the villain? And, I felt almost more sorry for him than anything else, because that's kind of what it felt like they were going for.
Yeah. No, I totally felt sorry for the guy, because it's again... They don't show him being a jerk or anything at the beginning. The poor guy is just asleep when we first see him. We don't hear until they're telling the story around the campfire that he was anything other than a decent guy. And then even
all
then...
conjecture.
Right.
Even then, right? I mean, it's
yeah,
just,
exactly.
Who's telling the story? One of the people who lit him on fire. You just don't know
exactly.
that yet.
Right. So it's like, what are we doing here, guys? Yeah, I mean, had he been just a real piece of shit and been hitting on the girls at the camp, or even worse, and just, really deserved, not that anybody deserves to be lit on fire, but had he been a jerk, then okay, cool. Then, light him up. Let's do it.
Yeah, and that, again, I think that just goes back to the writing in this film. Is I feel like it's certain parts of it are well written, but then other parts are severely lacking. And the villain motivation is definitely one of them. And then the reveal at the end, I feel like is completely inane.
Yeah.
It feels so stupid that now we're just finding this out, and now the character's just realizing it. Like, what the fuck are you talking about? Like,
right.
So the big reveal at the end of the film ends up being that Brian Matthews was one of the campers who helped prank Cropsey at the beginning of the film at Camp Blackfoot and lit him on fire. But we don't find that out until the last 10 minutes of the movie, which normally is fine, but it's almost like he didn't remember either.
Right. Yeah, it's revealed to him when it's revealed to us.
And it's like, what the fuck? Like,
yeah.
What is happening here? Like, that's so hokey. That is so hokey and so bizarre that I honestly can't comprehend that is what they went with for the big reveal.
Yeah, it's pretty strange.
Like, they could have shown it. I mean, and he was even the one telling the Cropsey story around the campfire.
Right.
So maybe I just don't. It's so weird. And look, I get it. It's at the end of the movie. You're trying to give us this big revelation. But like I said, it's almost like he too is remembering that he is part of the reason Cropsey is after him.
Right.
And so I guess, is it that Cropsey has been after him and only him this whole time?
I wouldn't think so. I mean, it seems like he could have taken him out a lot easier.
Right. That's what I don't get. Like, so Cropsey's motivation is then just he wants to kill campers.
Right.
Not that he wants to kill one of the people that happened to be there. So Todd just happened to be where Cropsey was attacking?
Yeah, I mean, because he doesn't go after the other people. I don't even know why Cropsey goes back to the camp.
Well, and again, like you said, like you corrected me at the beginning, it's not even the same camp.
Right. Right.
So either it's one of two things. Either he does go looking for Todd, who forgot that he had anything to do with it to begin with, or he just happens to, plot convenience, wander into a summer camp where Todd is a counselor.
Right.
Pick one or the other, because neither one honestly works.
No, they don't.
Right. Well, not in the way it's told in this film, that's for sure.
Right. And I feel a little bad, just not absolutely 100% loving this film, because I know this is a dear film to a lot of people, but it's just like, I'm sorry guys, coming in at this point in the game, I'm just like, I'm not necessarily buying it.
No, I mean, again, like you said, I mean, it's one of those films that it's taken a very long time for us to really get a release of the film that is, quote unquote, the full version of it.
Right.
It was released, I want to say Shout Factory released their version of it in 2013, and the print that was released in 2007 was the first time that it was ever on DVD, and that was the uncut version. So I misspoke earlier. It wasn't 2017, it was 2007 when it was released on DVD, and that was the first time the uncut version had been released, even though it was labeled as the R-rated version. But yeah, it's okay.
Yeah, and that's the thing, it's just okay.
Right. It's fun. It's goofy. But a lot of the stuff that a lot of things I was hoping for get a little muddled because it doesn't have a very memorable villain. It has some kills, but there's no, Jason picking up someone in a sleeping bag and smashing him against the tree.
It's okay. He just wants his machete back.
Right. Yeah. I actually forgot. I have seen Jason X, but nobody considers that canon because that movie's awful.
Oh, it's one of the best movies I've ever seen.
Just like Leprechaun in space.
Exactly.
And, you've got stuff like, welcome to prime time, bitch. Like, there's nothing like that in this movie. There's just not. And that's the biggest disappointment, is I was hoping for something that would stand out as iconic. And yeah, it's got work by Tom Savini. Yeah, it's got a lot of these kind of young actors before they were famous, but there's a lot of problems.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you what, though, it's not as bad as some other summer camp movies that I've seen. It's not as bad as some other horror movies. I mean, I think it's just average. It's just average. But I can see why people like it a lot. Because, I mean, again, if you went to summer camp in the 80s, this probably has a special place in your heart as like a, I can sympathize. Like, I was there kind of thing. You know what I mean? So it's like a time and
I
place.
lit a guy on fire. Oh, wait, I probably shouldn't admit that.
Right, yeah. It's definitely evokes a time and place. And that's the other positive. So what would you give the film out of 5?
I'd give it, I don't know, 2.5, 3?
Yeah, I would give it a 3. It's also edited by Jack Shoulder, so there's that.
Yeah. I think this was around the time he was working for Miramax, and was The Hidden, was that a Miramax film? It's been a long time. I want to say New Line, but that doesn't seem right.
No, it's New Line, because, I mean, don't forget, Jack Shoulder's second film was A Nightmare on Elm Street 2, The Gayest of Nightmares.
Oh, that's right.
And that was, obviously, the house that Freddy built is New Line, so...
Right.
Yeah.
But I want to say he was editing a lot of trailers at this point in his career.
Yeah, that sounds right.
He's a nice guy. I really like Jack Shoulder.
But he edited this film, so he's kind of cutting his teeth in 81, 4 years before he makes The Gayest Nightmare. And that's not a knock at the movie. It's literally insanely gay.
It is, but not that there's anything wrong with that.
No, it's just hilarious when you watch interviews in something like Never Sleep Again that they're like, we didn't realize. It's like, what?
Yeah, I asked them about that.
Where the guy's ass getting whipped in the showers. You didn't realize that was gay?
You didn't figure that one out, huh?
Or when Bob Shea is wearing, like, a leather daddy outfit, you didn't realize this was gay?
Yeah, I call bullshit on that one.
I'm with you. Especially like I forget what the guy's name is who wrote the script. And he's like, I didn't see any of it. It's like, maybe is it because you can't see the forest through the trees type thing? Like David Chaskin, was it just you wrote it and it didn't sound like this on paper, and then when you saw it in the theaters, you're like, not what I was expecting. Not at all.
Mm-hmm.
So, but let's take a break and we'll play a preview for the next Culture Cast.
Every year, the finalists for the Miss Cheerleader USA contest travel to this secluded camp.
Hey, there is no going back.
For some, it will be the crowning achievement of their lives.
I'm gonna win that queen contest.
Nerves are on edge.
There's something eating at everybody, right?
Ever since we've been here, it's never a good night.
Jealousies are exposed, and hatreds explode. This year, something evil has come over the contestants.
And she shows I'm gonna kill her.
The instructors,
You're a mascot, not a human.
the judges, and the hired help.
I hope you die.
Something is about to make them all victims of cheerleader camp.
Start with Allison. She's so fine. So look at her long or you'll go blind. Next is Pam. She comes out with a bam and will tell you this, she ain't no sham. Next is Bonnie. She acts kind of funny. Steal your heart but not your money. Can't forget Teresa. She's got what it takes. Putting her on this team was no mistake. Last is Lori, and this is her story. She's our gator, you'll be seeing her later.
Betsy Russell, Leif Garrett, Lucinda Dickey, Laurie Griffin.
We gotta walk out of here.
It's at least 40 miles.
Finally, something to die for. Cheerleader camp.
That's right, on the next Culture Cast, I'm going to be joined by my good friend and yours, Mr. Mike White, our friend Father Malone, to talk about Cheerleader Camp, another film that probably takes place at a summer camp. People probably get murdered. Just a guess.
Maybe.
Yeah, right. Until then, where can people find you? Hold on. Until then, what is going on with you, Mr. White, over at your award-winning podcast, The Projection Booth?
I haven't won any awards.
You've won the award of my love.
Oh. Wow.
If that doesn't matter to you, then I don't know what to tell you.
Well, we're doing a lot of sci-fi films this month and next month.
Look at you, not even
reason.
restricted by a month.
I know, right? It's just like, fuck time and space. I'll do whatever I want.
This man's breaking all the rules.
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, I'm talking about Philip K. Dick adaptations like Total Recall and Minority Report. And we're going to be talking about Belladonna of Sadness, a crazy Japanese anime film, which is not necessarily sci-fi. But then in July, we're hardcore sci-fi, a Mega Man, Annihilation with you, Mr. Stashu, Krull, Solaris. It's just going to be, it's going to be so sci-fi. It's going to be crazy.
if you do not, as a listener of the Culture Cast, listen to the episode of The Projection Booth on Annihilation, at least go back and listen to my podcast on Annihilation I did last year. No, I'm just kidding. But seriously, I cannot wait because in the last year between the podcasts, I have gotten a chance to read the book. And it is amazing. So
that's right, Ghost Bird.
I wasn't going to call you the same fucking thing. I was going to call you the same thing. Do you need me, Ghost Bird? Do you need
director.
me, Ghost Bird? Oh, God. Yeah, boy, I'm super excited to talk Annihilation next.
Yep. Look forward to it.
Any other podcasts that you do?
No, that's it. That's the only podcast I do. I'm not even on this podcast.
You can find me when I'm not here, or at the projection booth from time to time, on a little podcast that Mike and I do called the Kolchak Tapes, where we talk about Kolchak the Night Stalker, and that is over at kolchaktapes.com. I'm also on another podcast called Chronicles from the Crypt, where I talk about Tales from the Crypt twice a month with the aforementioned Father Malone. You can find that over at chroniclesftc.com, and add those two together, and you get the little podcast the three of us do called Dreams for Sale, where we talk about the Twilight Zone.
For sale.
I hate you. I hate that shit so much. Where we talk about Twilight Zone 1985, the first reboot of the show, and the best reboot of the show. And you can find that over at twilightzone85.com. Big thanks to Mike White for joining me. Big thanks to Jess Byard for picking the films for the named month that she picked, Jess Byard June. And we'll catch you on the next Culture Cast.